What's going on, everybody? Larkish here, and in this video I'm just going to be saying my thoughts and revealing season 4 episodes 1 through 3 of The Boys so far. So episode 1 starts off with Victoria Newman running for president, right? And the boys are making a plan to assassinate her because if she becomes president, you know, that could put the world at a disadvantage because she's a suit, right? And she could totally change everything for the worse. So their main plan was to have Frenchie and Kimiko put something in what looks like her eye drops. Like they switched it out with poison because her powers come from, she has like an ocular power where she just looks at you and your head blows up. So yeah, they try to swap her eye drop out with poison, and this fails because Victoria's daughter Zoe, who she injected with the Compound V last season, catches them, and she manages to kill 2 of the guards that were working with Frenchie and Kimiko. And Frenchie and Kimiko barely escape with their lives, right? And Zoe's power was kind of like these slime tentacle things that came out of their mouth, kind of like how the zombies looked in Resident Evil Afterlife. So yeah, so once that fails, Victoria goes to the boys' van and there's only Huey in there by himself, and he's talking to her. She's really like having a heart to heart, and then he tries to like spray acid in her face, and she's like, yo, what's your problem, man? And it's revealed that the acid is not working on her, but it just melts a part of her clothes off. And then Butcher comes in and shoots her in the back of the head, but that doesn't work either as the bullet bounces around and then she gets back up. So pretty much she's basically so she goes back to her running office campaign event, and then the boys go to regroup because their mission failed miserably. And then the rest of the episode just kind of focuses on, you know, Homelander, and Homelander's at the peak of his life right now compared to the other 3 seasons, but the thing is, no one treats him like an actual person, right? Like, especially at Vault itself, the Seven and everybody in there are very fearful of him, so everything he says, they just say yes to. Nobody actually has a like real conversation with him. It's just strictly business, and he's not really happy about that, right? So he just wants someone to treat him like a person and not say yes all the time. And he shows that people say yes all the time. And this one scene that's kind of taken out of context a lot on the internet, and I almost took it out of context too until I fully watched the scene. But he tells the Deep to do something to A-Train, and everybody's like shocked at first and hesitant to do it, but they were actually going to go through with what Homelander said because they fear him, because he could kill any of them at any time, right? So right before they begin to do it, he tells them to stop in frustration, and he's like, see, this is what I'm talking about. You guys always say yes, yes, yes. Nobody challenges me, nobody says no, nobody stands up for themselves around here, right? So he just wants to be, you know, surrounded by people who could treat him as a person, challenge him if he's in the wrong, and stop being scared of him all the time by saying yes to every little thing. So they find new people to recruit to the Seven, right? And one of them is this person they call Sister Sage back in the day. She was on the Teenage Kicks with A-Train when they were younger, which is basically the boys' version of the Teen Titans, I guess. And Sage's power is that she's just really smart. She's the smartest person in the world. So Homelander goes to recruit her. Homelander goes to recruit her, and then, you know, he's immediately shown that she's really smart, and she, like, right when they meet, she challenges him right away, right? she's not really scared of him. And this is shown where Homeland is like, well, show me that you're smart. And then she basically breaks down everything he went through the past 3 seasons just by looking at him. She calls him out. She tells him he's going through a midlife crisis, all of that. And he's like, all right, you got that, right? And while she's joining the 7 at Vought, she also challenges him when he's trying to plan for other things, and she's like, no, that's a terrible idea. She's the only one in the room brave enough to tell him that that's a terrible idea if he ever has one, right? And this is lucky on her part because she kind of lacks emotional intelligence, right? Because of how smart she is. So due to her lack of emotional intelligence, she's not scared of Homelander really, and Homelander can sense that she's not scared of him because he could usually read your heartbeat to see how scared you are or not. Later in the episode, Homelander and Sage plan a riot at Homelander's trial, and Homelander's in trial because of the guy he blasted with heat vision at the end of season 3. So it's basically Starlight fans versus Homelander fans, and they're saying he's guilty or he's not guilty. So that's where the trial comes from. So Sage, like I said, Sage and Homelander plan a riot there, and before the riot even starts, they have Todd and a few other people who are Homelander's biggest fans from last season. They gather them together, and then they have A-Train, Black Noir, and the Deep beat them to death with baseball bats. And they have A-Train plant the bodies in the middle of the riot to make it look like the fans of Starlight killed, the Homelander fans. And these 3 were special, right? Because they were Homelander's biggest fans. So that would just make that impact much more greater. So then later in the episode, Butcher tries to meet up with Victoria Newman, and he tries to convince her to do him a favor and try to get him closer to Ryan or get him some time with Ryan or whatever, so he could convince Ryan that Homelander is a bad person, right? Because Ryan is kind of like his last hope against Homelander at this point. So Victoria is like, oh, I need you to do something for me first, which was to delete every file that Huey had on her, exposing her for being superpowered and everything. So Butcher tells her he considers it, but later he doesn't. He decides not to give it to her anyway. Instead, he sends her a picture of his butt, basically, telling her to kiss his ass, right? Then in the episode, we also learn that Huey's dad had a stroke and he's in the hospital, right? And Huey's checking up on him, and then here comes a plot twist at the end. Huey's mom appears right behind him, and Huey's mom hasn't been present the entire series until now because she left them when Huey was little. So that was a pretty big shock to see. So yeah, episode 1, pretty good start to the season so far. They always manage to be really entertaining, and I like how they have the little political satires or jokes referencing things that happen in real life, right? The previous seasons, they were on the nose a lot about it, right? Like they would copy verbatim of what happened. Like, for example, Gal Gadot's video where she was singing with the rest of the celebrities right when the pandemic started. They did a copy and paste version of that. But here it's just kind of quick jabs. Like the Deep said his last girlfriend was psychotic, crazy, and she pooped on his bed, which was a reference to Amber Heard, obviously. So yeah, that was just pretty funny in that regard. Other stuff that worked for me too in this episode was Sage. I really like Sage's character. She's not afraid to tell not only Homelander about themselves, but anybody she's around about herself. But like I said before, that's lucky on her part because she lacks emotional intelligence because she's just super intelligent in general. So far, I'll give this first episode a 9 out of 10. Really good opener. It kind of felt a little bit short, and it kind of felt like it ended when it was really getting good, but that's why we have more episodes, right? So yeah. Alright, so now for episode 2. This episode starts off with A-Train filming a movie about his early days before he joined Vought and the Seven and all of that, right? And it's basically Vaught's version of a white rescue movie, right? So their story in that movie was A-Train came from, not a great environment, and then they have this white coach come in and then flip his life around, right? And this whole film is just like super stereotypical and maybe racially motivated, right? And A-Train calls him out on that, but the director that does all their movies and stuff, he's like, no, it's okay. This is just for the story. It's all about you, I promise, right? So that was pretty funny because the way they shoot it, they make it look like a real part of the episode. They change the tint and the lighting, and then when it cuts back to their reality, the lighting changes, and they're like, alright, cut, that's a wrap. So it's kind of like we're watching a show about them filming a show in the TV show. So I always like those elements. Also in this episode, Sage continues to call out everybody on their BS whenever she sees it. So for example, Vought is trying to pitch an idea on giving Ryan a solo save, and solo saves are pretty much scripted crime scenes or scripted scenes in general where the hero has to save the day by themselves, and this is just a way to like get that hero's social status out there. They basically do it for clout, because if you really think about it, none of these heroes really actually save people, right? They everything they do is just kind of scripted. So, but during this pitch, they reveal Ryan's costume and they call it the homeboy costume, right? And Sage is like, no, this is a terrible idea, right? And here's a dynamic I like here that we see. So Homelander in the last episode had wanted someone who could challenge him and someone that doesn't always kiss up to him right away. And now that Homelander finally has that, he's not used to it. So he's like, whoa, she questioning me right now? What's going on, right? He's not used to it yet. It's kind of like, when you're growing up and you want to do a lot of things on your own, and you're really like stubborn about it, and then your parent lets you do it, and then once you get there by yourself, you're like, oh, maybe I wasn't ready for this, maybe I don't know what I'm doing. So that's kind of where Homelander is, because in the end, Homelander is still kind of a child. He looks like a grown adult with superpowers, but mentally he's a child, because he really never got that love and care most people got coming up. After the pitch, is Sage, Ashley, and the Deep in the elevator together, and every time the Deep says something, Ashley just disrespects him, right? She just talks down on him, she looks down upon him, and then Ashley gets off the elevator, and Sage gives the Deep a boost and confidence by saying, yo, why do you take that from Ashley? You shouldn't let her talk to you like that. You're literally the evolution of human, you know what I mean? And the Deep's like, yeah, you're right. And Sage is like, yeah, act like it, you know what I mean? You're super powered, act like it. So later in the episode, he confronts Ashley, and he really puts the fear into her now. So now she's gonna start treating him a little differently. So while that's happening, the boys go investigate a convention that's against Starlight and her fans, run by the superhero named Firecracker. Now, Firecracker is racist, homophobic, and transphobic, right? And I see a lot of people say on the internet, they could fix her. And I don't blame them for saying that, but you know, she's still kind of racist and everything, right? So that's kind of what throws it off for her. At this convention, you know, it's just MM, Huey, and no, it's just MM, Frenchie, and Kimiko, right? So there's this guy that works closely with Firecracker. He's a simp for her. He has a super big crush on her, right? And she's just treating him like a friend. She's like, oh, whatever. But everything she does, he gets overhyped about it, right? It's just really cringe to see him crushing on her. So the guy walks away out the room, and then MM sends Kimiko and Frenchie to go investigate whatever he's gonna go do. So they follow him into a sauna, but the sauna is empty. And then here's where we get one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen. I'm just gonna say they opened the door he was in, and they opened the door to a room he was in, and there was a human centipede. So this guy has the power to clone himself, and there was a human centipede. That's all I'm gonna say. While the head of the centipede was looking at a picture of Firecracker, his beloved Firecracker. So that scene caught me off guard. I had to sit there for 10 minutes and process what I had just seen. And they didn't censor it. They literally showed everything, like to the last minute detail. Like, yeah, so that caught me off guard. And this might sound weird, but you know, last season, in season 3, they had Herogasm, right? And when I watched this human centipede thing right here in this episode, I'm like, where was this during Herogasm? Because, you know, last season, people were hyping it up, like the writers and everything. They're like, yeah, we're doing Herogasm from the comics, and da 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 da. And we get to the episode of Herogasm, and it's just one of Starlight's support centers, a firecracker fan goes in there accusing them of locking kids in their basement because that's what he heard firecrackers say. Yeah, there's a lot of simps for firecracker in the show, but so yeah, the guy that owns the center or that works at the center, he's like, no, we don't even have a basement, right? So then the guy pulls out a gun on him and then Frenchie disarms him. So everybody see, but it's just crazy how far people are willing to go for a firecracker when she's probably not willing to go that far for them. Alright. So and then next in the episode, you know, MM wants to try to see if he could flip A-Train to be on their side now, because he's noticing how A-Train is becoming more hesitant in his actions, right? And he's like, yeah, I can see right through A-Train. He's about to flip, right? Because he helped the boys get footage of him swapping the bodies or whatever, basically clearing up the Starlighter's name, because those were the bodies that Homelander and Sage planted there to make the Starlighters look bad, but A-Train basically cleared all of that up, right? So that's why MM's like, oh, if he did that for us, then maybe he could be on our side if I could convince him, right? So meanwhile, Butcher is contacting Ryan through a video game which looks like a way better version of Mortal Kombat 1, because we know that game is a dumpster fire disappointment. So throughout the match, you know, Ryan's beating them, and then Butcher's like, look, we need to talk. And Ryan's like, we are talking. He's like, no, not in the game, in person, face to face. So he's like, alright, I guess, right? So before we see Butcher meet up with Ryan, Ashley gets demoted to being Vault's mascot, and this is because Sage is super smart, so she can handle all of Ashley's responsibilities better than Ashley ever could, right? So this makes Ashley want to quit her job now. So she begins writing this resignation letter, and then there's this scene in the episode where Vault brings in the Starlighter supporter, and Homelander's like, so have you been helping Starlight do whatever with the camera footage that A-Train provided, right? And she's super scared. She's like, yo, why are you scared right now? There's nothing to be afraid of. And Sage is like, I promise nothing will happen to you if you just be honest. I promise. She's like, right? And Homelander's like, yeah, chill, yeah, everything will be fine. So she's like, yes, I did talk to So the girl's like, yes, I did talk to Starlight a few days ago. She asked me to help her. And then he heat visions her brain out right away. And Ashley sees this, is like, oh crap. So then that makes Ashley basically put her resignation letter in the shredder, because now she's afraid that if she quits, Homelander's gonna kill her. Alright? So, so yeah, Ashley's not in a good place this season. So meanwhile, we finally see Butcher and Ryan reunite at Butcher's place, and they just basically spend some father and son time together, you know. And this is different from the father and son time that Homelander spends with Ryan, because Homelander uses Ryan as a thing, right, to get him more likes. He's like, no, I'm not a bad person. Here's my son. He's gonna be the next me, right? They use him as advertisement, or another mascot, if you will, right? But outside of that, Homelander doesn't really interact with Ryan. He kind of leaves him in his room by himself, and he only talks to Ryan when he needs something from him, right? Meanwhile, Butcher with Ryan, you know, he plays foosball with him, he talks to him, he has heart-to-heart with him, and he ends up telling them all those mean things he said to him in the last season. He didn't really mean it, you know. So, you know, you can already see Butcher is a better suited father for Ryan than Homelander is. But it's not entirely Homelander's fault that he doesn't know what he's doing, because he never got the proper love from a father when he was coming up, because he was in the basement being experimented on for half of his life. So yeah, so Butcher's just really good for Ryan, and Ryan is starting to see that more now, right? So then, close to the end of this episode, it gets revealed on why Firecracker hates Starlight so much. And the reason is that when they were both 13, they were both part of the same beauty hero pageant. And Starlight spread a rumor that Firecracker was sleeping with the judges because, Starlight wanted to win so bad. Back then, Starlight wasn't, I don't want to say she wasn't a good kid, but she was kind of mean. And that's because her mother was always like, yo, you have to win, you have to do this. This is all or nothing, right? So Starlight was about to be like, was really bad behaved kid. So that's why she spread that rumor about Firecracker, which ruined Firecracker's reputation, basically. So she's like, in order for it to stop spreading into anything further, I had to leave. So then, that's why she's building this campaign against Starlight, because she ruined her chances of doing anything in life when they were 13, right? So, yeah, so now I kind of see why Firecracker acts the way she does, and why people say she could be fixed, because she's kind of broken due to Starlight's actions, and that probably really ruined a lot of aspects of life for her, right? So, I'm not defending her racism or anything. I'm just saying that's why, her being broken can kind of be understood like maybe 1 or 10%, right? So, and it's actually pretty good motivation for her to hate Starlight. So, yeah. Meanwhile, Huey and MM go investigate a meeting between Homelander and Victoria Newman, and they only know about this meeting because A-Train tipped MM about it. So Huey goes in the vents to eavesdrop on their conversation, and then Huey sweats, and the sweat lands on Homelander. Now Homelander has super senses, so he felt it or heard the sweat drop, and he smelled the sweat drop, and he could smell that it was Huey. Right, so he just starts heat visioning the vents, and he was trying to get out of there. And then, Homelander's just relentlessly hunting Huey down now. He's like, I'm gonna kill him. And Victoria's like, no, if you kill him, that'll expose me. He's like, I don't care, right? So then MM shines one of the stage lights. Oh, this takes place in the ice skating ring, by the way. So MM shines one of the headlights on Homelander that makes him miss mid-heat vision, but the heat vision accidentally cuts one of the ice skaters in half. And then once that happens, all the ice skaters start panicking and accidentally killing themselves with the ice skates. And I'm only laughing because some of the deaths with the ice skates were like, come on, you could have avoided that, right? So the only realistic one was when the girl's laying on the floor trying to get up, and someone rolls over her fingers, cutting them off, which has always been one of my biggest fears, which is why I don't go ice skating. But everybody else, they're falling on each other, or one guy's just purposefully rolling over another dude's body, and then there's this other guy on the benches and the stands, and this other guy puts his foot over with the ice skates on to get over the ledge so he could get out the room. And while he's putting his foot over, the ice skate slits the other guy's throat. So it was just kind of ridiculous, right? But funny at the same time because it was just over the top, right? So yeah, then Homelander is just still looking for Huey, and it doesn't look good for Huey because Homelander is about to catch up to him, right? And Huey's trying to get out, but all the doors are locked everywhere and everything. So then, Huey opens this one door that leads to a rooftop, and Homelander opens that door too. But when Homelander looks around, Huey's gone. And then it turns out A-Train grabbed Huey at the last second and got him away to safety on the nick of time. So this just further shows that, A-Train's gonna flip over someday, right? He's just gonna flip over to the boys' side, right? And I also like that A-Train did this because it goes back to the whole solo save idea from episode 2, right? And how Andre exposed that he never saved anybody, right? So now A-Train, this is his first time actually saving someone. It might not be the person he exactly likes or care about, but A-Train can finally say, you know, he saved someone without it being scripted, without it being controlled by Vought. He saved someone's life on his own. So, you know, I really like this episode, you know, 10 out of 10 right there, because that ending was crazy, you know, and they're really redeeming A-Train's character, and like I just said, how he actually finally saved someone by himself for the first time. And, you know, I just like how intense the chase with him and Homelander was. That was pretty cool. And, you know, Firecracker's motivation against Starlight actually makes sense, because if someone did that to me, I would hate them for the rest of my life too, and devote my life to ruining them. So yeah, overall, like I said, this episode gets a 10 out of 10. Pretty good episode 3. As a season overall, I'll give it somewhere in between an 8 or a 9, either or, because this season so far compared to the other seasons is pretty slow pace. You know, it kind of feels like they're building up to something, right? So each episode has stuff happen, but each episode still feels like build up, right? Nothing too crazy happened, but stuff is happening. And, you know, that stuff that's happening is building up to maybe the end of the season, or building up to their season 5. So, yeah, that's going to be about it for my review of the first 3 episodes of season 4 so far. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. It'll really help me out. And I'll see you guys on the next video.